here's a sneak peek of what's to come, so stay tuned. Now in this video I want to go through and share with you hands down my favourite Magicka Warden PvP build, the Resistor. Hey, it's Dan, and welcome back to Unified Gaming. The Resistor. This is stupidly tanky, and it hits really hard, as well as having good sustain. It's kind of everything you'd want. For me, this is hands down the best build I've played to date, and yes, I've updated it for the current patch. But what's more, it's not just as good as it was before, it's got the same damage and the same sort of mitigation at all times, which makes it even better. So for me, this is just like a step up of what we had before, which was just crazy as it was. But before we jump into the video, if you haven't guessed it, this channel is all about helping you get better at next level builds, guides and gameplay. So why not start improving today by subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. Now let's get started. So the race and the Munderstone, guys, what I find that works best is a Nord, but you could change it, so hear me out, okay? Nord, in all honesty, is just the kind of easiest race to play this build as, because you just get so much bulk, you get extra armor, which is helpful, you get immunity to the chilled status effect, so you can't be snared as easily with like ice stuff, which is just helpful. You also get extra health, which you can obviously have minor toughness, make that even bigger, so you get more from that passive. And you get stamina, which just is really helpful when you're in melee range, which as a Warden is very often. And on top of all of that, you get ultimate generation, which for a Warden you struggle to kill people without an ultimate, so you can see that's going to be highly valuable. So for me, I use a Nord with the Mage Munders because I like to switch a shield out for one of the skills. And if you want to push the damage even higher, just change your Munders from the Mage to the Apprentice and you'll hit harder, you just can't use Magicka shields as a result. If you're not a Nord though, don't panic, there are other options too. I also run this build on a high elf with great success. All I do is just change my Munderstone to the Lady for the resistance, that's literally it. So you basically need to have like extra bulk, whether that's from your class passive or the Munderstone, so you can do that with Breton and Dark Elf too. As for the food, guys, I use Bewitched Sugar Skulls, hands down the best food you'll get for this playtime, like best food. You could however use obviously tri-stat food, so long thin pastry is a good option, and the potions are really simple. Tri-stat potions or tri-stat potions, that's about it. It's really simple. You need the stamina, because if you're out of stamina you're dead. You need Magicka for heals and damage, and you need health to stay alive. So tri-stat potions just do it all, so they're like hands down the best potions for this playstyle. And then poisons wise, I don't use poisons personally, I do find them a little bit cheaty, but if you want to just min-max it and just go like full out, on the back bar I would use Escapist poisons, they are just absolutely phenomenal. Now the part people always skip to, so we're going to cover it really quickly, but do stick around for the skills, and I'm also showing combos at the end of the video which is just absolutely disgusting, like so strong, so do stick around for that good stuff. The monster set is pretty straightforward. I use one Pirate Skeleton and one Lord Warden, but you could put in Mighty Tudor in one of those spots. You want to have a heavy piece and a medium piece if you're having your Undaunted passives. If you don't have Undaunted, just go with 2 heavy just to min-max your resistances. You then want to have Tri-Stat on the big piece of the helmet and Magicka on the small piece, the shoulder. We then pair this with Necropotence, which is like a staple for Magicka Warden, so do run Necropotence. We have Tri-Stat on the chest and on the legs. We have Magicka on all the small pieces, the gloves, the waist and the shoes. We go full impenetrable on every single trait, so ideally try and get that. Then what makes this really special is that we use 3 Ancient Grace jewellery. You can buy this from traders, it's really good. We have Arcane on all of the jewellery traits, and we use 3 recovery glyphs, but if you get really confident you can swap this for 1 spell damage. If you are somebody playing as a Breton though, I would then use an extra spell damage in this kind of combination here. What Ancient Grace lets us do then is mix up our front bar and our back bar. I'm going to go through the back bar first because the front bar is a little complicated. On the back bar we use Blessing of Potentes, Sword and Shield. So any 1H, Sword, Axe, Dagger, make sure it's defending, and we have an impenetrable shield with Magicka on it. The Magicka glyph is much better than any other glyph because it gives us slightly more max Magicka, which means that heals are slightly better on that bar. Stamina, you don't get the stamina from it. Health, you don't get the health from it, so don't use any of those, or Prismatic because you don't benefit from it. and again obviously impenetrable on the shield. As for that front bar weapon, you have a few options, so you do need to pay attention to this, okay? If you are somebody who has the Master's Lightning Staff, that is the best weapon for this playstyle, hands down. This will let you basically be like an AoE build where you just walk into groups and just hit multiple people with any skill you do pretty much. It's just absolutely crazy. And it's dirt cheap as well. And in Greymore, that Master Staff gives you loads of stealth damage too, so it's just even better. And if those people go, I don't have this yet, in Greymore you can get a normal version of this which is just as good, so don't panic, you could run this next patch too. If you're somebody right now going, I don't have the Master Staff, but I've got an Asylum Staff and an Asylum Perfected Staff, use that. But if you don't have a Perfected one, then don't use it at all. What I would do if I don't have any of those, and that's what I was doing originally, was use a Willpower Staff and have it as an Inferno Staff. That's really important. An Inferno Willpower Staff. And then you want to have double dot poisons on that. So if you use the Inferno Staff, double dot poisons. If you use the Master Staff, weapon damage glyph, so Berserk. If you use the Asylum Staff, weapon damage glyph, Berserk. So those are your options for the weapon. It's a little complicated, but it just gives you lots of choices if you don't have the right kind of gear. As I said though, the Master Staff is the best for this playstyle, but the Willpower Inferno works just as well. Now the part that I think is the most important, so do pay attention to, is the skills. If you have the right skills and the right armour, you're going to do well. But if you get the combos, you're going to be absolutely lethal. So I'm going to go through those at the end of the video, so do stick around. We're going to start with the back bar skills because they're a bit easy to go through, and I'm going to go through the front bar skills and give you the different options based on what front bar weapon you use, so do pay attention to that. On the back bar, you want to have Blue Betty. That's basically free resource, and it's a purge and it's major sorcery which you can just spam for free. I spam this a lot as I run around because it heals me a little bit from my passive, so just a really good habit to get into. Ice Fortress for just your armor buff and minor protection. I then use Shimmering Shield, phenomenal ultimate generation, immunity to projectiles, it's just great when you're kiting. And then Living Trellis, which is kind of a heal over time, and the burst, so if you spam cast this, which is just awesome. If you are going, oh I need more movement, you can swap Shimmering Shield for Mistform or kind of Raced Against Time. On our last skill we then have two options. Arctic Blast is really good, or you can use Dampen Magic. I prefer Dampen Magic because I like to put my shield on and then attack, but Arctic Blast allows you to put your heal on and be defensive and then kind of sort of attack them when they're stunned, so both work really well. It's up to you in all honesty. And for me, the best back bar ultimate is Healing Thicket. This is phenomenal. This is like a burst heal and it's a heal over time for you and anybody in the area. If they leave the area they heal too, so it's like just really good. The other morph isn't as good in my opinion, so I wouldn't use it. As I said earlier, the front bar skills are much more complicated, so do listen to this, okay? I'm going to go through first with the Master Lightning Staff, what I would run, and then I'm going to go through with the Willpower Staff, and then the Asylum Staff. Starting with the Master's Lightning Staff, Deep Fissure, Shock Clench, Bird of Prey, Inner Light, and Northern Storm. Deep Fissure is like a big AoE ability, it's a delayed burst skill, so it's really good to use. Major Bridge, extra damage, just phenomenal. Shock Clenches are spammable because of the Master's Lightning Staff, and it's an AoE which is just phenomenal. Bird of Prey is just minor Berserk for having it slotted, so that's good, and its movement if we need it. And then we have Inner Light for extra crit chance and extra max magicka, giving us more damage. I then switch between Northern Storm or Dawnbreaker. If I want just straight burst, use Dawnbreaker. If I want kind of sustained damage with just high AoE damage, Northern Storm. Both are really good. And as for our last skill, you have a few options. Cliff Racer gives you the best burst combo that you can have with this playstyle. Fletcher Infection is a bit easier to play in all honesty, and it hits hard. And if you play in a group, you can swap this for Corrupting Pollen, which is a great group skill. If you have the Willpower Inferno Staff, because you are lacking the Master Staff, you want to run this. So the Willpower Inferno Staff skills. Fletcher Infection, Deep Fissure, Flame Clench, Bird of Prey, and then Crushing Shock. You then want to use Northern Storm to just help kind of get that final hit, but Dawnbreaker works just as well. The key thing with that Inferno stuff is you must have double dot poisons. The Fletcher Infection plus the double dot poisons help you finish people off because you lack that final execute, that kind of final hit. And those dots there just help kind of keep them nice and low for you to land that last skill or two if you need to. And if you're somebody with the Asylum Inferno stuff, you then want to run these skills. You want to run Screaming Cliff Racer, Deep Fissure, False Pulse, Bird of Prey, Inner Light for just more passive damage at all times. And then for the ultimate, you want to go with Northern Storm or Dawnbreaker. Northern Storm though does push ahead in all honesty for that kind of playstyle. So we have gone through all of the skills, and in all honesty the Master version with the Master Light and stuff is the most rounded one. It gives you kind of everything you need apart from a stun. The Willpower one is really good in Battlegrounds because you have that kind of stun to just get big burst hits, and then the dots and the poisons and stuff to just keep them nice and low to finish them off. And the Asylum one is just phenomenal in duels because you just control them and they can't get away. But all three of them are great in BGs, Open World and Cyrodiil, but my go-to is the Master one because it's just all AoE damage and it's just great for just solo or group play. Now for the age-old question, should I be a vampire? And personally, yes. The regen is very noticeable, it's very helpful, as well as the undeath passive, but there are some cons, so it's personal choice. As for that CP, like all my builds, it's min-maxed down to the T. The red and the blue, I like just copy those, they're just really strong. The green one is how I play, so you may tweak it slightly for you, but the CP is really good. Feel free to pause the video, speed it up, go back. The one thing I will say is, in the Lava Tree, try and get wind running if you can. It's a really useful passive, especially on Magicka Warden, because when you sprint, which you can do with Bird of Prey, you get extra recovery, which is just going to really help you out. Plus you move fast, which again is a really nice passive to have. Before we continue, I just want to say a massive thank you to all of our Patreons who are like helping fund the channel with obviously just donations and stuff. It's really appreciated. That really helps me work towards my goal of doing this as like a part-time job, so I really sort of thank them. There's obviously a link in the description, but I also want to say thank you to all the people who obviously like the video, share the video, comment on it. That really helps. So like if you want to help me, obviously like, comment, share, consider donating. It's all going to help the channel, help myself make this a reality. So a big thank you to all you guys. Now this is the spicy part, where the magic is, where all the combos, the tips and the tricks, all of the secrets that I've learned since playing this build over 5 or 6 weeks. So pay close attention, rewatch it if you have to, and I'm going to go through kind of the different options based on what weapon you have, so you've got all of them there. I'm also going to go through and just share kind of some tips on how to stay alive, how to basically not die if you don't want to die on this build, which you won't die if you don't want to. It's absolutely crazy. In order to do damage as a Magicka Warden, you're trying to land what we call burst. You have a skill called Deep Fissure, and that basically has like a delayed ability. You cast it and 3 seconds later it does damage. Your job is to make sure that this lands with something else, which is quite common, so that's not where the magic is, that's just something to do. If you land this with another skill, you will hit hard and you will kill people pretty quickly, but if you do the combos that I'm going to go through now, you will do so much more damage. So we're going to start with the Master's Lightning stuff because that's the main premise of this build. But I'm going to go through the Willpower one in a moment too. So you always want to buff up first, so that's Betty Netch and Ice Fortress. You could chuck in Living Trellis if you want, but you don't have to. As you do this, you should be walking towards the target, you go Deep Fissure, Shock Clench when it's in range, and then you cast Cliff Racer, and then you roll dodge, Shock Clench. What will happen is that the Shock Clench, the Deep Fissure and the Cliff Racer the second time would all land at once. And you're probably going, why do we do the first Shock Clench? That's just to proc the weapon damage glyph, that's literally it. So by doing it this way, the first Shock Clench procs our glyph, we then have the Deep Fissure ticking away nicely, we summon the Cliff Racer, which takes a second to kind of hit the target, and we roll dodge cancel the Shock Clench, which makes that kind of fire a little bit faster, and you end up landing Deep Fissure, Cliff Racer and Shock Clench all at once. So that there is like 35,000-40,000 tooltip damage, and that's where the magic is, because you end up like doing most if not all of somebody's health bar, and then you can follow up with a cheeky Shock Clench for just if they're still alive, so really strong there. You can also do that combo with your Northern Storm up, so you just hit stupidly hard and they can't move away from it, so that works very well. You could also do it with Dawnbreaker. If I did Dawnbreaker, I'd use the same buff up, so buff up, Deep Fissure, Shock Clench, Dawnbreaker, Cliff Racer, Shock Clench Roll. They die. You don't even need to do the Cliff Racer, you could just go with Shock Clench Roll, and that will kill them too. Now you might be going, but Dan, I'm not as good as you, I can't do this as quick as you can, and that's fine. All you can do is just swap Cliff Racer for Fletcher Infection. So what you'll do is you'll buff up, see the target, Fletcher Infection, Deep Fissure, and you basically go Shock Clench, Shock Clench, Shock Clench, Deep Fissure, Shock Clench, Shock, and so on. You get the idea. And they all die pretty quick because you're landing Deep Fissure and Shock Clench together, with the Shock Clench just being kind of done as a spammable to keep the health nice and low, whilst the Fletcher Infection also helps keep it lower too. Chuck on Northern Storm too, and you'll kill them really fast. So that's what you can do if you've got a Master's Lightning Staff. It's really, really good. And if you're playing in a group, you could change your Cliff Racer to Corrupting Pollen. What you'll do is buff up, see the target, Deep Fissure, Shock Clench, Corrupting Pollen, Shock Clench, Shock Clench, Shock Clench. Get the idea, repeat, chuck in an ultimate if you need to. That's how you use this build with the Master's Lightning Staff. It's really, really good. If you're somebody with a Willpower Inferno Staff and you go, I don't have the Masters, this is what you do, okay? You would have Flame Clench, which is a stun. So you have a few combos, a few options that you can do which work really, really well. Deep Fissure is the aim of this build. You need to land this with something else. You don't have another hard hitting skill because you don't have any kind of reliable ones. So what I do is I buff up, see my target, and I start with Fletcher Infection first. I then cast Deep Fissure, and I do a fully charged heavy attack. As I do my heavy attack, so I'm doing the animation, pulling the staff back, I then push Clench, which will then cast it once the heavy attack gets released. This will basically mean that the Deep Fissure and the heavy attack land together, which hit really hard. My then Clench will come and knock them onto the floor, so they're now being damaged by my Fletcher Infection. My poisons normally sort of proc by this point, and then I do a False Pulse block cancel or a False Pulse roll dodge cancel, and then that will make them kind of really low. Your poisons will be on them, and you just use False Pulse to just keep them low or kill them if they're really, really low. And if they kind of try to recover, just cast Deep Fissure and just light attack, False Pulse to keep them really low until that Deep Fissure fires and you get the final kill. I use this a lot in Battlegrounds. It's highly effective because the poisons and the Fletcher Infection just do enough damage to stop people healing through it quickly, so you keep them nice and low if you weave in those False Pulses. And then a Deep Fissure gets the kill for you, which is great. If you have Northern Storm, chuck this on as well and you'll definitely get a kill 9 times out of 10, so really, really strong there. And if you're somebody with an Asylum Staff, it's just the same as the Willpower Staff, but you just make sure that you're weaving regularly, so you do Deep Fissure, and you want to weave Crushing Shock as best you can, and you'll just end up eating away at them too quickly and they'll just die from that. It works really well in duels, it's just not that bursty, it just loads the sustained damage. So those there guys are just some of the offensive combos. If you want to see more of that stuff, just jump into my Discord, send me a message, I will obviously help you out as best I can. And then to stay alive on this build, regardless of your front bar weapon, is really, really easy. What you want to do is basically keep your Living Trellis on as best you can, and then if you get really low, treat it as a burst heal. So if you're playing with a sword and shield and you're using Dampen Magic, not Arctic Blast, you'd simply go to Dampen Magic as kind of your pseudo burst heal, and then you'll spam Living Trellis whilst you're kind of getting your shield on, getting your shield beaten up. Then you'll recast a Dampen Magic again, let the Living Trellis this time tick away and you'll be absolutely fine. So treat Dampen Magic as kind of like a burst heal. If you're somebody who doesn't use Dampen Magic but you prefer Arctic Blast, that's your burst heal there, so it's the same thing. You go for your burst heal or your shield, and then you spam Living Trellis as best you can to just kind of stay alive. That works really well against stamina classes. If you're fighting a Magicka class that is mainly projectile based like Sorcerers, Magicka Nightblades, quite a few of them actually, well you have Shimmering Shield. This is like phenomenal. This is basically nope. You take no damage if they hit one of those. So what I do is if I get stunned by a Magicka class, I would break free and go for my normal shield or Arctic Blast, so get my burst heal on basically, and then Shimmering Shield, and then Living Trellis. And I wouldn't cast Living Trellis much, I might cast it maybe once or twice at the most, because I know that they're hitting my Shimmering Shield, so my first Trellis will proc. If I did Arctic Blast I've got a burst heal anyway, so that's kind of how I'd use that. Shimmering Shield is a really good way to get out of trouble if you are fighting a ranged class like a Magicka Sorcerer. If they're hitting you, you won't die. I fought Malcolm on this build a while back in the Imperial City, and he couldn't kill me just because I was spamming this skill. That's literally it. Just it absorbs so much damage, it's such a strong skill. And it gives you ult gen, so you can put down the trees if you get really, really low. And if you're really low, then just chuck out your tree ult and you'll be absolutely fine. Tree ult, same stuff as before, and you'll stay alive. If I'm being really pressured though, I'm going, oh, I need to get out of there, I might cast my blue Betty to just kind of give me a little heal and remove a negative effect. And I'll cast Shimmering Shield or Living Trellis, might alternate how I do that, and then Bird of Prey and sprint away. I would run to a rock, or I'll kind of pillar around a corner, and then put my shield on, spam my heals, stay alive, nice and simple. So that there guys is kind of all of the combos and the tips and tricks on how I stay alive and do really well in the build. I get crazy kill to death ratios in battlegrounds, as you can see. I don't die often, I can take an absolute beating against Zergs, it's just absolutely crazy, like a really, really strong build. Now I know the video has been quite long, so I will begin to wrap it up. But before I do that, I just want to say, obviously this is a little bit more complicated than I normally do. So if you are new here, don't think like they're all this complicated. I just really didn't want to put out 2 videos where I'm just changing one weapon, because that just seems really clickbaity and it's just not fair. So I hope that kind of putting it into this one video where you've got like the same gear but maybe one thing changes is helpful. It does mean I need to kind of explain 2 parts in the video, so let me know if you find that useful, and if you like that kind of stuff I'll do that for other builds where I give you like a min-max version and maybe just tweak 1 or 2 things with the set so you can still use the build and it'll be viable. So let me know if you want to see that kind of stuff. But with that said guys, I do want to wrap this video up. It's long enough as it is. So thank you for watching, take care and bye.